Welcome to Leadership, Love and Laughter, where we dive into the unspoken truths in life and business. I'm Natalie Potts.
And I'm Victoria Dioh.
Let's go!
Hello there. Welcome to Leadership, Love and
Laughter.
My name is Victoria Dioh and you are...
Natalie Potts.
Whoop, whoop. What are we talking about today's pots?
We're talking around loneliness. Very broad there.
Very broad. What are you thinking?
So keeping it around leadership is definitely the focus for us, but I guess that expands to then what that means for us personally as well, because like we'll talk about with, you know, whether it's running a business or the corporate world, like you're still a person, you're human, right? So it's understanding that. So that's our theme.
Yeah, leadership and loneliness. My take is when you're in a leadership role, you're so focused on making sure that everybody else is okay. Nobody ever thinks about asking you how you're doing. And as a result, you tend to almost think that you're invincible, which is why a lot of leaders experience burnout, right? Because you don't deal with things as they come. It's like you pile them on, and by the time you realize that something's wrong, it's too late.
Yeah, I think there's a big bit as well when you think about the demands, the expectations of like almost just doing in the role opposed to being. And it's something I'm very conscious of running my own business now, is this idea of like I can work all the hours under the sun, like yourself, like we work hard and we do, like we generally have a great work ethic for business. And that can stop you from actually, like I said, just being in a state. And it's exactly, I remember being a corporate one, it was just the same and doing all the time. Yeah. You don't actually give yourself the space and time to slow down or to understand what you're doing. And then suddenly like it can hit you like a ton of bricks, or it's like, it doesn't give you any space to even see that may be something that is happening for you, that you're lonely. And I guess always very conscious of going back to saying about pandemic and post-pandemic and everything, but it was probably a wake-up call for lots of us to go, actually, this is how I feel, or life isn't how I want it. And that was probably the state for many people in relationships, one with themselves, but others as well. And then looking at scenarios like in the workplace as well, what that actually meant. Because I always say with this, I felt isolated, but I didn't feel lonely. And then the conversation was like, well, what's the difference? And what does that look like? And how do you, like, what are the pros and cons of that?
See, I loved, apart from all the sadness around lockdown, I loved it. I loved being in my own space. And a bit like what you say, feeling isolated, I guess, was the thing. But I loved getting to know me more, because I'd never stopped to pay attention to who I was. I was always on the go. And all of a sudden, I had all this time to decide what I wanted, how I was going to get it, and also who I wanted in my life as well. So, because I believe that loneliness doesn't mean that you are alone. You could be in a room full of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and still be alone. And it made me realize the people who I felt alone with, even though I was with them. And that for me was a huge declutter exercise to do in my life, so that I didn't feel alone.
Yeah.
I felt, so now the people that are around me, I feel nurture me in some way or the other.
That's really interesting, because when you think of, I guess, what I've seen growing my own business is, again, having to build a circle around you of people who get it. And like you can still feel quite lonely when you're starting a business. But again, it's taking the learnings of that. Like I've been able to see how I felt lonely in the corporate world and think about, well, I guess some of it was not as much in my control, because you can't change a team around you all the time in that way. Yet when you run your own business, you do have the ability to do that. I do get the chance to know who I want to work with, who I don't, and also build, like yourself, like the right network of people around me, which makes a huge difference. And actually what I noticed by that is, I think this was one of the core things when I was wanting to leave the corporate world, was I often said the values just aren't a fit anymore. And that's actually, you have to let go that it's not all about the business. And that is on you as well. with what you tolerate and accept. And there was a part of that, the people just aren't who I want to be anymore. And that's not on them, that's on me to change that situation for who do I want to be around? What is the life I want? And what does that look like? So it's, again, it's like you've just said there, it takes us to be able to, and I'm doing a lot of work around this recently, just focusing on like you first. If you want change in the world, that starts with you. I'm reading this fascinating book, I've just finished actually, by Mo Gawdat, who I've met a couple of months ago. I've always loved his work.
He's lovely. I've met him too. He's a sweetheart.
Some of it I find can be quite in depth, but it's the voice in your head, or little voice in your head, something like that, the book. And again, it was talking around yesterday, this idea of, you know, like he used to say, like, I want to change the world and I want to impact 1 billion people and make them happy and smile. And actually his son, who passed away, turned around and said to him, like, stop changing the world, just change yourself.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm used to that narrative because I read a lot, I do a lot of personal development, but lots of people aren't. And it's like, you know, if you want to bring change, start with you. Like, what does that look like? And the same with loneliness. If you feel that state, like, that has to start with you. Another interesting perspective on this is another book I was reading recently, The Courage to Be Disliked.
Yeah.
And it was talking all around interpersonal relationships. And actually, you wouldn't feel lonely if you didn't have others around you. It's the fact that you've got that allows you to feel that way.
Feel the other way.
And again, so for loneliness and isolation, when even for this podcast, I was researching, thinking about it. And isolation is more the physical, where it's the loneliness is more the emotional. Therefore, it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, great books that you've mentioned. I'm just about to start The Courage to Be Disliked. I've seen a number of people post about it, and I've seen experts of it. So I'm intrigued to see what that will talk about. I mean, to be honest with you, it's like I never really resonated with the book, but so many people have spoken about it. I'm like, I want to read that. But
and Zac Efron had the book in a recent movie that I watched.
Oh, stop.
So I was like, that.
Oh, so that was it.
I was like,
that was your drive.
I'm reading the right stuff.
That was your drive. But you see, the whole thing about feeling alone as well, I think it's nice. It's a good thing to feel alone. And I'll say this because a lot of the time we stop feeling, especially as leaders. We move away from feeling because we numb so much of our lives. And that's why there are times when we can't resonate when somebody says, well, do you feel, if you experience imposter syndrome, do you feel lonely? Do you feel disliked? Sometimes we can't even tap into that because we're so much on the go. We're aiming for the next thing. There's a next milestone to achieve and the next project that we need to be looking at that we don't realize it. And sometimes when I feel alone, I always check in with myself, and it's never that I feel alone. Normally it's just because I'm bored. Normally it's like, oh, I want to do something else. It's never that I want to be around people, because I'm very much, if I want people, I'll go and get them.
Sure.
But I also really enjoy my own company. A bit like yourself, love my own company, love spending time in my own company. But it's normally that I'm bored, or I want to find something else to do different to what I'm doing. But I enjoy feeling the loneliness because it allows me to tap into a different realm that I've not allowed myself to think for a while. Does that make sense? So it's almost like a checking point more than anything else.
Yeah, it's a journey piece with this, isn't it? That, again, it's not the stuff that we're taught about. I was in a call with people in Canada recently, actually, and I've, again, like I always say, sometimes I can feel like a little bit of an outlier or outsider on things, and it's been interesting to see how they learn. That it's just different over in the US and Canada. And just talking things through with them, a different perspective. And like when you actually start, you can meet people and be strangers, but when you've got so much then in common and like you can find that one connection thing, you instantly feel then you're not in that way alone. And again, it's going and finding the right people, like I said, with the right values, what you want to do in life and things like that. I think it is the irony, the courage to go, to be honest with yourself in that I feel this way. And actually, how can I change that? And but also just sometimes it's like the being uncomfortable part. It's like sitting with the pain as well, and it demands to be felt and just allow that. Versus, I remember doing grief recovery when I left the corporate world,
Yeah.
because I'd lost that sense of identity. Again, aspects of loneliness in that. But I just had to stop throwing everything in my backpack, and it's I use that analogy all the time. Like, I just think about it like literally, I just chuck it in, zip it up, and it's like suppress it down. Emotion's gone. And it doesn't really help. So it is hard to be honest with yourself, but then lean into these things as well. And I think that, again, comes back to the relationship you have with yourself and the trust that you give yourself, and the space as well. It's brave to say, I feel that. It's not easy to say to somebody, I feel lonely. I remember a few years back, 2018, I worked for Shout Crisis Support as a volunteer, because at work they'd said for the next level of leadership I needed to have more empathy. I'm still working on that, as my mum recently told me I didn't have empathy for her. Bless
My
her.
mum said that to me as well. She was like, you have no compassion. I was like, just for you, because you need everything now.
And I was like, okay, mum, we'll leave that there with this point. So bless her. But it's... I was thinking, but what was I linking?
You were talking about that you were asked to go and do this charity thing because
yeah,
you needed
sorry.
more empathy.
And Shout was, people come on and they're strangers, and you're at your laptop, you're tapping away to help them, and I was training everything, so you know the structure of what you need to do to help somebody and the right support to give them. But a lot of people just be like, I'm lonely. That was a lot of it all the time. So they just wanted someone to feel understood, heard, valued. And again, these are. And I was going to throw this in a bit of a spanner into the works today with this one, but because it would be interesting to see. But these are all of the things we're talking about. Although we're positioning it, leadership and corporate, and our journeys in that, it's still relevant to businesses and a whole and people, isn't it? And like I sit here and often, I think the more I'm doing this with yourself, and that's what I was going to ask you, is like, what are you learning on this journey? Because we've actually had a bit of a break from doing this recording. And I think that sometimes there as well, you just need to have the space and time to say, what's going well with this, what's not going well with anything that we're doing, what am I learning, and again, what's it changed, like what am I seeing differently? Because I think that there are some things I'm going through with this and I'm like, actually maybe I changed my mind on that, and that's okay. It doesn't make me a hypocrite, it doesn't mean I haven't got a belief in something. I'm okay to change my mind on it and just have a discussion that's open, and it doesn't have to be this or that. It's definitely really interesting because when we just said about imposter syndrome, I'm like, I've had different conversations about since our last episode on that and what that could be, because I'm just more in my state of awareness is higher.
Yeah. I mean, and I agree. It's like, and this comes to leaning into your feelings. It has, and it's been a really busy 3 months for both of us. Like, we've both sort of like heads down, focusing on different things, and it's interesting because I think when we spoke last time, I was like, no, I don't experience imposter syndrome. Actually, I think I do. And I actually thought about this last week. I was like, do you know what? I do. And it's not that I don't feel not good enough. It's just that there are certain learnings when I think I'm still learning that. So when I talk about my journey of learning that, does it make sense to still be the authority to teach that? And then I look back and I see the results of my clients and I go, well, yeah, you do. So, but again, it's more awareness and just checking in. And also for me, it's, and I hate using this word, but it's the integrity or the authenticity piece of not wanting to seem something that I'm not.
Okay.
Like I believe that everything that I put out is either from me or something that I've learned and I can back up by something, or that there's evidence of. And I think when it comes to things like the imposter syndrome, I've never really looked at something and thought, I'm not good enough for that. However, there are certain learnings when I go, that didn't work out. How can I teach somebody else to be able to achieve that? And it's very different when you're learning it yourself versus when you're teaching somebody, because it's easier to guide someone else to,
of course,
to make it happen. I mean, I've had clients who've gone away and earned more than me.
Yeah.
I've had clients who've gone away and created different results than me and what have you. Does that mean that I'm not in authority to teach them? No. But it does mean, though, that those are still goals that I have to keep on working at. And whilst I may know how to get someone there, it's very different getting it yourself there. But that's why we have teachers. That's why we have mentors as well.
Yeah.
It's easy guiding somebody else down that route, but getting yourself down that route is a different. I always say I wish I had a me. I wish I had a me as a teacher, because I love the way I help people achieve their goals without just staying in the logical world, but
Right.
also blending, the intuition and the logic together. I love that. And I have to almost learn twice as hard to get to where I'm going because I don't have a me. Even my spiritual teacher, who I love to bits and he helps with a lot, doesn't do that for me. He closes a lot of gaps, but the bit that I need, I only know me as the person to do it. And it's that whole thing of loneliness where for me, loneliness is when I can't find someone to help me solve a problem. That's when I feel lonely in business and stuff. And I'm like, I need someone to help me solve that right now. And I'm going through that at the moment where there's something I'm trying to resolve and that I can't seem to think of the person that I know they'll come, but that loneliness bit comes from the lack of closure of that particular issue. I've just gone off on a whole whirlwind.
No, I
there.
love that point around the closure as well. And also your vulnerability. You're not always like that with sharing those things. And
Well, I'm quite. I think
you're not honest. Like going back to that point about integrity, you're not that. But also you have a natural confidence. You have a natural positive outlook on things, which is healthy and nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, do you know what? It's that whole thing where you say you go on a journey, don't you? You go on a journey and then you experience something and you go, and this is the growth. And one of the things that my teacher Les said to me, he goes, the more you evolve, the more challenges will come.
Right.
He goes, so it should never be that you think, oh, you've not achieved what you want, is that you're progressing. But you'll never, it's like as soon as you climb that ladder, there's going to be something else that's going to be stopping you from getting to the next rung on the ladder and stuff, and you've got to combat that and move through it. So, and that's life. That's always it's never, oh great, I've sussed this out, I'm just going to flow. The flow will last for only a little moment and then you hit another challenge. And that's how I see it. I see and at the moment there's a lot of people going through that at the moment. There's a lot of tugs and results that we're not getting and results that we are getting, and when we're not getting those results, it's like, what am I doing wrong? And it's not even about what you're doing wrong. I always go back to what's the lesson. What's the lesson in that? It's because it could be that you've not done anything wrong at all. It could be that you've done everything that you needed to do for it, or maybe not. But it's always what's the lesson. And once you realize it's more about what's the lesson than blaming yourself, then your level of awareness heightens, as opposed to going into a space where you're defeatist and you think there's a problem to solve. And so it's like we need to stop thinking of ourselves as problems to solve.
Yeah, and thinking about that, if I was to go back now with the knowledge and experience I have from running a business into the corporate world, I'd be very different. My awareness would be different, the way I would conduct myself. I'd probably confidently give things more time and space as well. And I'd probably make better decisions on things, I think.
So my question to you is, do you ever feel lonely?
I think less so now because I'm in a relationship. I think that's changed a lot of things. Is again going on that piece of I said recently, I had a break of being in relationships like for 6 years, which was quite a long time in your 30s, and probably plus, because I wanted to focus on work, get a place and everything. And then I think now, because I've got that ability to again reframe, but I'm with somebody where actually I'm like, I feel happier in myself and with them, that I'm able to look back and think, yeah, probably actually, if I was honest, I was lonely there. So it doesn't slap bang me in the middle of the face to go, now like I am. There's times when I feel that, like yourself, where you said stuff like, what's the gap part? And it's, does someone just not get it? But I guess I'm trusting myself a lot more to just let some things be and not have the answers for things straight away. So like what you were just sharing, I've got a friend who's done very well in his business the last few years. He's in the fitness space, but we were just talking because he's achieved his goal of getting 100 clients in a program which he wanted, and he works really hard. And then he said, like, I want 150 now, or what? He goes, I don't know what I want. Where am I at? What's my identity? What's this? And like everything's spinning in his head. And we bounce stuff off because there's no judgment. We just listen, and then I'll say a challenge, he'll say a challenge. It's a great space that we always have. And then we can talk about some real personal things as well. And I just said to him, like, you just got to just allow yourself not to know the answer right now. You like a lot of control. You know, you think there's an art, like you can just almost like fix stuff. And I think sometimes when you're in like roles like leadership or things like this, people think that money can buy these fixes, and it can't. A lot of the time, these things are the stuff, like I said again, like you have to do the work yourself, or just allow them to be and feel them as well, and see where it takes you, and be less pressured on things. So I don't. It's not initially slapping me in the face, if I'm honest. It's like I don't really have the answer to that right now. And I think again through this conversation, it's just sparking me to go, well, think about that. I know I like a lot of me time. I need that. And even with Tom recently, I said, like, it's not about you, it's about me. There was something that happened, I can't remember what it was, but I was like,
it's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
that line.
that saying. I was like, but I said, I just need that me time on my own. I used to love going to the cinema on my own once a week, like when it was before COVID time.
Never done that.
I love it because I switch off my phone. I'm just like, there's no distractions. I'm in that moment. It's, it allows me to focus. I just love it. Yeah. So I'm very happy in my own space and my own time, which I like and I think is healthy. So, but I don't feel lonely there. I think where I felt the more isolation when it was like the COVID was like I lived on my own. I didn't have my parents who I loved, and that like them, they weren't just there to see. And
that must be difficult because you guys are quite close.
Yeah,
aren't you?
even stuff like like your hug or stuff like that. Like you just don't have that.
Yeah.
That I found really tough.
Yeah, I think situations make us lonely sometimes as well. It's more like a situation or a person, and I think a person that makes you feel lonely obviously is somebody that needs to be in your life, and a situation that makes you feel lonely is something that you can look into and see whether it's something that you are creating or it's something that, like you say, you can just be in that moment and experience it, because sometimes we just need time to gather our thoughts and to see the way through, because naturally we've been conditioned to make so much noise. So for example, I've been in situations where I can see where people, they find pleasure being together in a group because it's fun, it's noisy, there's always something to do. And because there's no intention behind that gathering, you find that people feel even more lonely than if they were in a room on their own. So the loneliness isn't, I don't think it's a problem that needs to be picked out, but we should be aware that if it does happen, we should be able to discern what it is, whether it's something that we need to look at or it's something that we're just going to sit in and enjoy and create magic out of it as well. It's like I said, I love spending time on my own, and there's so much stuff that I can do. Like this morning, it was a day where I didn't want to speak online. I didn't want to really particularly socialize with many people in the business. So I went and made the most delicious coleslaw. It was just so nice, and it was just me time, and I didn't feel alone. It was just me time, me sort of like enjoying different flavors and enjoying a different skill that I really enjoy doing and that I don't get a chance to do because, again, I'm always rushing around doing
and that's
stuff.
a bit like I said, the doing, isn't it? Earlier, not just the being. And what is that? And like you said, we're so conformed on those things. Do you think you can spot loneliness in someone?
Oh yeah, 100%. But that's me. That's my job, right? That's my job, the intuitive side. But oh yeah, 100%.
And what is it you see or feel or can know about somebody?
It can manifest in different ways, You've got some people who don't know how to, they've almost been alone for so long, and they feel so alone that they almost lose their social skills. I know someone right now actually, and they're lovely, but they're going through a really tough time, and they feel very alone. And they don't know whether they're coming or going. But if you said to them that they were feeling lonely, they probably wouldn't at first agree to it. So they're not aware how alone they are. But they're really struggling, and it's coming out in different ways. They, like I say, their social awareness is completely down the drain. They're feeling very overwhelmed. you know, there's a lot going on in their life. They're going through major changes as well. And you can see it, but also as a friend, you just hold a space because there's other stuff that takes priority than the loneliness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they still surround themselves with people, but these are people where you walk into a room, do something, and then you leave. They're not people that spend a lot of time with them. And then there's other people that I know who are lonely, who are experiencing major self-sabotage, whether it's drugs or whether it's or other substances, creating a lot of drama around themselves. You know, it shows in just different ways. And again, my whole thing is sending them compassion, and sending them blessings and hope that whatever they're going through resolves itself, because it's not, obviously you can't help unless you get called to help. So you see it from afar and you just send them blessings and hope, that they get through what they're going through. But a lot of people are going through a lot of things and they do feel lonely because in leadership roles, whether it's in a corporate or in business, a lot of the time your business friends are your business friends.
Right.
Very few become personal friends. And sometimes people don't know when to cross over to become personal friends. So there's almost like that there's a bit of sort of like hesitancy to actually get there. And the trust of who do I tell and how much do I tell, and and who else is going to know about this, because maybe it's something that they feel ashamed about or what have you. But it manifests in different ways. But my whole thing is, you never know what somebody's going through. Show them a bit of compassion, because it will manifest in very different ways. I've been seeing online a lot of very bold statements coming on, and you see the bold statements, and whilst a lot of people see bold statements, I see a lot of pain behind those statements. And again, it's just like, rather than getting frustrated behind them, I'm just like, you know what? I hope that whatever they're going through, it resolves itself.
You're a friend to me.
No, actually, I'm not.
I'm only joking.
But actually,
like I do go bold sometimes.
Yeah. No, you do go bold, but no, I mean, there's a tone to some of the messages that go out, and
I definitely had. I guess, like you said, though, it's the output, it's substance. It's still it's getting it out, isn't it? That you can't deal with it internally. It's like,
yeah.
And I did that with drink a lot. When I left the corporate world, I went into, again, we were going to talk about this part of it. It can lead into depression, like severity of other things, if you don't take the time to kind of challenge yourself on what's going on and ask for the help as well. Even if you don't know, but you just know inside there's something that's not right. It's being able to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help.
Yeah, speak to someone.
Yeah.
Speak to a friend.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
And I was just literally every night I was drinking like a bottle of wine every night, easy. And it was like a release. It was, don't get me wrong, I still feel that when I have a gin now, I'm like, week's done. But it was different. It was a way to fill a void and not lean into that of why do I feel that way. And I think, like you said, there's so much importance in what you say. You have to be compassionate. There's never any judgment. The lady who we both know, Gulam, but she was the lady I did grief recovery with. And I said, there was a part of, she goes, no matter if it's trauma or anything or grief, it's still someone's. We would say the severities of, well, that's more severe and that. She goes, but it's still that person's trauma or grief. And that's the important part. And I think that's the part here. I'm just saying, be caring enough and compassionate to just see that we'll all deal with things in different ways. How can you be of a support to somebody?
Yeah. From a spiritual perspective, we're all one.
Yeah.
We're all one. So very rarely will one of us talk about an experience that we've not experienced, or that we're not going to experience, or that we don't know someone who's experienced it.
Yeah.
And whilst somebody else may be struggling with something, the fact of the matter is that we if we don't show compassion to people, and I'm not saying let people walk over you, it's more about if we don't show compassion to someone, then nobody's going to show us compassion. What we put out is what we receive.
Yeah.
And it's just acknowledging that loneliness isn't a weakness.
No.
It's a temporary situation, and that's why it's useful to speak to someone to get help. There are, I know there's charities out there like the Samaritans that you can speak to.
Shout. That was one.
Shout.
You just literally text shout to 85258.
85250.
258.
258, 85258.
Yeah. Shout crisis, really good.
Yeah. So you see, there's things to do.
And actually, just to break this, sorry, I only cut you in there, but I was sharing something about mental health and something the other day, and I said a point around business, and we're not going to talk about the post as such, but it sparked somebody to reach out to shout because they're in a certain situation, and they said, because you put that, I did that. And it's like, that was the sharing part is so important to people because people just don't know about it.
Yeah, we're all struggling with our own thing. Anybody who tells you that
they've got it easy,
they've got it sussed,
they've got no kids,
they're lying, or you don't know them very well.
Yeah.
Like if you look at somebody and go, oh my God, like there's this thing that really annoys me online when people go, oh my God, I want your life. And it's like, you don't, because if you know what that person has been through, trust me, you don't want their life. Because when you make that statement, oh, I want your life, it means you want everything that they've been through. And trust me, a lot of what they've been through hasn't been great. What you see now is fantastic, but what they've been through to get to here hasn't been great. So nobody's got it perfect. Everybody's experiencing their own, some of us more than others. But one thing I've learned, especially in the last week, I've spoken to so many people who are just going through some horrendous stuff, and it's easy to see where loneliness can come in. And I'm not saying I would never, but I hope that I'll maintain the awareness of showing that compassion, because again, it's very easy as well for us to lose that compassion, especially when we're being self-absorbed and worrying about ourselves and everything else. So yeah.
I'm going to end this on a high, actually. So here's one thing you can go and do with this. And this is, again, something I learned with my amazing people that I'm speaking with in Canada, and that is literally, and we know this stuff, right? We just don't do it. But it's go and message or ring 10 people today who you've just thought of, just with no intention other than just seeing how they are. Because, again, it goes back to the point around people say they just say, how are you? They're, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, are you really fine? No. So just literally go and text, even if you do 5 people, but go and give some compassion or say, I'm just thinking of you. How are you doing? I did it last week, actually. And it was lovely to see just people coming back and things like that. So it's a nice way to end this, because I don't think it's a great conversation, and it's open, isn't it, to discussion. And I think what we've shared is we're still just going through it ourselves with this.
Yeah, completely and stuff. And we had another. Matt used to do one in his academy as well, where he was like, just ring someone you've haven't spoken to for ages and just say hey,
or send them a selfie.
Yeah, send them a selfie. I
love that one.
Yeah,
people are like, what are you doing?
There's so many ways to reach out, and you know what? Every time I've done that exercise, there's at least one person who's come back and gone, oh my God, I really needed to hear that.
I needed that. I love that.
Yeah, I needed that.
So important.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for listening. See you soon.
Thank you for listening. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share it with them, and we would love you to subscribe. Remember, the insights shared only have value when you take action.